So we're going to talk about the CPD. CPD means Continuous Professional Development, that was carried out in the ENRICH project, and also link it to the platform, the e-learning platform that was developed for the CPD. So some of the things that I mentioned in my introduction earlier will be repeated here. We developed a course, an online course, that was based on a very systematic and quite extensive and really interesting needs analysis that involved many different stakeholders. As you can see, English language teachers, learners of all ages, including migrant learners. And we wanted to host the CPD in a really updated and user-friendly online environment, more of which will be presented by my colleague Maria Fountana. The aim was to promote competencies, teacher competencies that are necessary for integrating ELF in the multilingual classrooms. And these competencies are not just necessary for ELF-centered issues, but they are very useful competencies in general that every teacher should have, because they help learners become successful communicators. And we heard a lot about this from Kurt earlier and from the partners in the ENRICH project, how important it is that learners become confident in their use of English in today's global environment, and also become self-aware both as learners and as users of English. We based the entire CPD, and actually the entire ENRICH rationale is grounded in decisions made by Central European Union institutions. There's a European strategy for multilingualism, which actually focuses or mentions or raises or points at English as the lingua franca of today's global world. But it also points out that we have to change the way we look at that particular language. And this should be reflected in the EU and the national policies and curricula. And also we have to rethink, as a result, the entire infrastructure surrounding language education in schools, so that learners learn how to expand the language repertoire, being open to using many languages for international communication. And this is a very welcome notification for translanguaging, being open to the notion of using many different vehicles of interaction, linguistic and otherwise, when we want to communicate, and feeling good about it, rather than feeling insufficient as non-native users of English. So to that end, it's important that teachers acquire the teaching strategies that would support their learners in these multilingual settings. And for that reason, one of the pillars in the ENRICH project was the adoption of a really effective teacher education infrastructure. There was a lot of mention about change, and Barbara Zallehofer mentioned the need for evolution, the evolution of English language teaching. That's extremely important. And we have been recognizing in the ELF community that English language teaching needs to change. It needs to follow what is going on in today's global communicative settings. And there are many reasons for that. So Henry Widdowson has mentioned the deforinization of English, which has become common property. That's really, really important. And I'm not sure that this has really been communicated until now in the traditional way of looking at teaching English as a foreign language. Because English is still taught in many contexts where it is the expanding circle context, it is still taught as a predominantly foreign language, which means that there's always a standard towards which learners aspire, they aspire to reach that standard, and this reflects in their testing practices and so on. And ELF is not sufficiently integrated, although this is rapidly changing. It needs to be more openly integrated in course books and textbooks and syllabi and curricula and, of course, teacher education programs. We mentioned, and my colleagues mentioned, the framework of ELF awareness. ELF awareness is a process that uses ELF research, but not only ELF research, World English's research and English as an international language research, but mainly ELF research, because there's a lot that's been done within the ELF community of scholars that focuses on how we communicate, what strategies we use when we communicate. And there's a lot of discussion, there's been a lot of debate and discussion that really raises many questions and can help us understand how this works, how we communicate. So ELF awareness uses ELF research to help teachers of English integrate the key concerns and notions of that research in their teaching contexts. The fact that their learners should take ownership of the way that they use English. They shouldn't feel that they are in any way subservient to any kind of standard, whatever that is. But on the other hand, they have advantages that they should further mold and hone and develop. And this is exactly what we try to do. To do this, of course, it's really important to focus on how teachers themselves view themselves as in the role as teachers. So we developed, initially with my colleague Yasemin Bayurt, we developed the three different components of ELF awareness. The first component is, of course, being aware of language and language use. What do we mean by English as a lingua franca? What is the linguistics? What is the pragmatics? How do we use English? What are the strategies that are portrayed by when people use English to interact with non-native speakers? What exactly goes on? What is happening? That's one major aspect of ELF awareness, and we try to incorporate that in our ENRICH CPD. Secondly, we focused on the teacher. It's important that the ELF-aware teacher is aware of how they teach, what kind of feedback they provide, how much time do they spend providing feedback, how much time do they spend allowing their learners to grow as users of English, both mainly inside their classroom. To do this, it's important to focus on what we call meta-linguistic awareness, being aware of how we use, what do we think about when we use a particular linguistic structure or function. And lastly, awareness of learning, the recognition that today our learners learn English by actually using it to a large extent or to a lesser extent outside of our classroom. That's exactly what makes English not a foreign language. It's been deforinized. It's not a foreign language because people use it and therefore they learn by using it outside of their classroom context. But they need to be aware of this. So if their attitudes towards English and towards themselves as users of English are negative, if they keep feeling that they are inadequate, that they are not able to really make the best of their capacity for using English to communicate, they need to engage in activities, in metacognitive activities that focus on becoming aware of these attitudes. And progressively this would lead to a transformation of their attitudes towards being more open and recognizing that they in fact are able to do many things when they use English without feeling bad about it. I talked about the objectives of the ENRICH project in the introduction. It's about awareness of language cues. It's about networking, getting the teachers together to form communities of practice, focusing on refugees and migrant populations, and using English as a neutral kind of way of interacting instead of the language of the majority. Trying to incorporate as much as possible innovative ELT practices such as translanguaging, TBL, CLIL, ICT, and other transversal skills through ELF. Incorporating a large component about the European cultural heritage. And of course, we did this by developing a high-quality CPD that we will further discuss in a couple of minutes. The CPD is hybrid. It incorporates online self-study. It can be completely studied in isolation by just visiting the video lectures and answering the reflective questions. It can also be used through a mentorship program by having some kind of a discussion with a more experienced teacher, or by following an in-service or pre-service university course. Experience is really important. It means that the teachers need to actually put into practice what they study, what they read, and carry out certain experiments, have a go at trying things with their learners. And of course, always being reflective and critical about what they do, getting feedback from what they do. The teacher education course, the CPD, had 3 phases. The first phase, as you can see, from February 2019 to September 2019, in that phase we designed the CPD syllabus on the basis of the needs analysis. This meant developing the all the materials for the course and the activities. We discussed them thoroughly with all the partners, and this was the phase where the Moodle platform was developed. And Maria will talk about the Moodle platform in a few seconds. The second phase, from October 2019 to January 2020, was the piloting phase. That was really important. We piloted it with 21 English language teachers who critically reviewed everything. They looked at the videos, at the activities, and gave us very useful feedback, which led to the refinement of the materials and the activities. And of course, the last phase, the last aspect of this was to select the CPD participants, those teachers who would actually take part in the course, which led to phase C from February 2020 until June, with a small extension to July 2020. This is, as we all know, COVID times. So everything was done fully online, or nearly fully online. As we progressed towards June and July, things of course were heavier. And so that was the implementation of the CPD course and the evaluation of the CPD course, more of which will be presented later. The key aspects of the course was an active engagement with the materials and the activities through the use of the activities were designed in certain ways that triggered reflection. The input, the actual course input, was not reading input but audio-visual. So we developed a number of video lectures that span between 20 to 40 minutes each, and were accompanied by the activities that focused on providing on prompting our teachers to reflect about their beliefs and attitudes and think about their experiences about certain aspects of their teaching. We also prompted a reflective dialogue among participants. It was important to use a mentoring, the idea of having mentors. We, the partners and our colleagues, acted as mentors, both in terms of the different sections of the course, and also in terms of the geographical area in which the course was taking place. For example, in Turkey, Yasemin and her colleagues mentored locally those teachers who participated in the broader region. The same in Greece, in Portugal, Italy, and Norway. And the final result was, in reality, through the CPD materials, the reflective activities, and the final assignment, which was essentially the design of a lesson plan and the implementation of the lesson plan, the actual teaching of that lesson, and then the reflective aspect of it. This was what led to a number of different projects, action research projects, and we received some really useful, really interesting data from that.
The space that hosts the online Moodle course, you can see the image, innovates in terms of original design, as it aims to offer users non-linear navigation between each individual sections. The homepage includes a specially designed interactive navigation map, which has got libraries that allow it to respond and adapt to all computer screen resolutions, even on mobile devices. This is a responsive image map. You can navigate to the course either by clicking directly on bubbles or by selecting a particular section of the course from the menu on the left. In the next slide, Nicos, here, by clicking in one of the bubbles that you saw in the previous print screen, each bubble corresponds to a specific part of the course. Each section follows similar structure based on a specific template used horizontally in the ENRICH Moodle course. So as you can see, there is a general discussion forum at the top of the page, and then there are three distinct separate sections, one with the main study material in the form of a short description and a video presentation. The second section includes supplementary material of different types. So here you can download the PowerPoint presentation based on which the video was developed and the transcript of the video, as well as relevant material from the textbook in which the video presentation referred to. Finally, there is the activity section, which includes specific types of activities that we will be presenting in the following slides. In the Moodle terminology, I should say here that an activity, such as forms or quizzes, refer to items in which students can contribute to directly and is often contrasted to a resource such as a file or a page, which is presented by the teacher to the students. However, the term activity is sometimes for convenience also used to refer to both activities and resources as a group. Yes. We have moved on to the next slide. This is the sample forum activity. This is the first type of activities provided in the ENRICH Moodle course, which is a forum activity. It allows participants to have asynchronous discussions. And here you can see a specific task. Nikos, can you move one slide before? No, forum. Yes, thank you very much. Okay. So this is a forum sample activity, which is, you can see a specific task which describes a request from the students to reply to it. And you can also see a sample student answer to this task. Let's go to the next one. Okay. This is a sample of the second type of activities used in the ENRICH Moodle course, the quiz. It allows the teacher to design and set quiz tests, which may then be automatically scored. In the sample quiz, you may see that there is a revision on key terms mentioned on the video presentation material that preceded this activity. The first section is followed by a set of questions that need to be matched with one of the two key terms presented in the video and revised within the activity. In the next slide, you can see another activity, which is the choice activity, where a teacher asks a question and specifies a choice of multiple responses. So in this sample activity, the student is asked to check all the statements that are true in the case of their own learners. Finally, in the last slide, yes, it's the final type of activities used in the ENRICH Moodle course, which is the final assignment and the peer review type of activity. Assignments enable teachers to score and provide feedback on uploaded files and assignments created on and offline. In peer review, a similar process is followed, but this time it is done by peers to peers. That's it from me.
Thank you, Maria, very much. This is a snapshot of the participation by different participants to the project. As you can see, we've had a few hundred people who enrolled, more than 300 people. And you can actually also see some statistics, some data concerning those who didn't carry out any activity at all. This means that the vast majority of participants actually participated actively, despite the quite rigorous and at times difficult, in terms of the need to reflect difficult activities. All the activities were reflective activities in their vast majority. And this means that it's quite demanding. That's why 96 participants completed the whole CPD. Of course, the demand of the CPD itself is one issue. The other issue is COVID. Things changed very rapidly, and we're really very pleased to have nearly 100 participants, a third, finishing the CPD. You can see the obstacles here, and these are the countries, the statistics regarding the countries. Statistics concerning the gender, no surprises there. The ages, as you can see, we have quite a few people who are quite not extremely young, but fairly experienced in their teaching, as is also obvious in this graph here. And in terms of qualifications, a large number of our participants had an MA or equivalent. In terms of the evaluation of the CPD, we received very good, I think, very good evaluation. The course helped raise the knowledge to a very large extent, because it actually the course referred to materials that probably wasn't familiar to the participants. The thinking skills is another component that was improved. The teaching skills, self-confidence, and the sense of community. The sense of community is another aspect that perhaps needed to have been further enhanced, but because of COVID and because of the need and the demand of the activities, that was why perhaps we are halfway through here, half and half. With regard to the learners, now this is what the teachers think that the learners achieved. In terms of the language skills, we are 38% here agree and strongly agree, 38 and 35, nearly 70% are positive. And the picture is the same, largely regarding the improvement of communication skills, self-awareness as learners and self-awareness as users. And these two perspectives here are important because they're very reflective, and they can be achieved through metacognitive and metalinguistic activities. And finally, here are this is some input from the learners themselves. You can see the demand. It's been a demanding but totally worth it. The course enabled me to have a glimpse in colleagues' classes across Europe and exchange perspectives and views. The content has opened my eyes to new ways of teaching and approaching certain subjects. There's a re-evaluation of beliefs and teaching methods, and that was the main objective, actually, to enable change in the mindset of most teachers. Just to make them understand that there's a different way of moving ahead with teaching English. That's why the furthering of critical skills, confidence, and the general stance as a teacher is really important. And you can see the negative aspect, the negative impact that the outbreak of COVID-19 has had.